ask any members or officers in physical attendance with electronic devices to mute it to avoid feedback. Please ask any remote participants to keep their microphones off unless they wish to speak. Please note that the meeting is being recorded and that staff may use body-worn cameras within the premises. Data captured during these recordings will be processed and retained in accordance with the Council's data retention policy, and the meeting recording may be published on the Council's website and, of course, YouTube. Members accessing the meeting remotely should use their SBC or KCC laptop to participate virtually. If you join using the link on the website or on a mobile and a tablet device, it isn't always possible to identify you, and you may not be recorded as being in remote attendance. Okay, I make that 7 o'clock. Have we started recording? Lovely. Okay. Welcome everyone to tonight's Environmental Services and Climate Change Committee meeting, and welcome to any councillors and members of the public joining us remotely this evening. Special thanks to members. It is not a call meeting. It's very hot in this room, so thank you very much for attending this evening. In addition to the members of the committee, we have the following officers in attendance with us this evening. Head of Environment and Leisure, Martin Cassell. Environmental Services Manager, Alistair Andrews. Green Space Officer, Stephen Gale. Democratic Services Officer, Tim Neal. Democratic Services, Shanae Boo Cham. Please be advised that there is no fire drill planned this evening. If the alarm sounds, those in attendance should leave via the exits indicated and assemble outside where directed. Do not use the lift. If anyone is in attendance requires extra assistance, please make yourself known to us so that we can assist. Do we have any apologies for absence or substitutes this evening?
Thank you, Chair. We have apologies this evening from Councillor Hunt, who is being substituted tonight by Councillor Leanne Moore. Also apologies received by Councillor Alex Eyre and Sarah Martin, and both are being substituted this evening by Councillor Ben Martin.
Just checking, do we have any other late notice? No? Okay, lovely. Item number 3, we'll move on to minutes. Members, are we happy to approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 13th of May 2026? Minutes number 18 to 19 as the correct record. Lovely. Right, let's move on to item number 4, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest against the agenda this evening? Councillor Washington?
Yes, I'm a member of Greenwood Town Council, which is also involved with the toilets.
Lovely job. I think we've got a number of town and parish councillors in this evening, so should we just take that as a cross declaration for everybody? Lovely. Okie dokie. Okay, item number 5, matters arising. Are there any matters arising from the previous minutes? No. Okay, we'll move on to the Chair's briefing. Okay. So there are quite a large number of items that have been covered since the last meeting, so you'll have to bear with me. I'm going to read these out verbatim. I'm also going to ask at points Councillor Paul Stevens to add something to this, because we are going to be covering the motion. So this is a report from the Chair of Work on the Committee, business that happens between the last meeting and this meeting. First of all, to note that this committee has missed a meeting for spokesman that was to be discussing the agenda coming up. This, I've been informed, is a missing meeting for all the service committees in this round of committee thing. I've taken this up with Democratic Services and underlined the importance of the meeting being an integral part of the process, so cannot be missed in future, and there has been steps taken to make sure that we make sure that that meeting isn't missed again. So apologies to members if you're expecting to attend that meeting. Move on now to the motion that was put by Paul Stevens regarding, I've delicately named the water motion, which was recommended to the Environment Committee from full council. Just as a side note, we are taking it here, but we must remember that SWAL has no statutory obligation towards the water in Swale. So, Councillor Stevens, would you like to just outline the motion in brief, please?
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. It was very disappointing that the actual motion was referred to the service committees, but having said that, it's given it a little bit more of a high profile, and things are moving faster than I'd ever expected. So a big thank you to Councillor Whiting for actually getting it this far very quickly. The actual motion itself is purely to ask the leader of the council and the chair of Environmental Services and Climate Change Committee to write to Southern Water to ask for their plans to support water quality improvements for Milton Creek. And also provide full council support for the leader, deputy leader, mayor and service committee chairs to provide any public or written support sought by Raybell Charters in support of external funding applications without the need to wait for committee approval. Now, obviously this is your choice, whether you want to agree with this or not. It already has been agreed, I think, last night with the committee.
Bonnie?
Yes,
Yep.
property, economy, which was unanimous. But at the end of the day, we're not asking for any money. That's not what the question's all about. It's purely a quality review that was done that highlighted the state of the water in Milton Creek, and the fact that we came up with some solutions. Not all that they can do on their own. It will be helpful where the surrounding businesses were involved, which that have been written to by Raybell Charters, who are actually doing their survey. So that's good news, and we have spoken to, or they say, not we, because I'm on their behalf. They have spoken to Southern Water and are having talks with how ways that they can help as well. But obviously with the council's backing, I think it will carry a little bit more weight and be more helpful in the long run. So I'm not going to go through the whole motion again, but it is a good motion. It is available. The full review statement is on the Raybell Charters website under projects, and it's an 18-page one. It's in detail of exactly what measures were taken, where they tested, and the results, and ways of actually improving the water quality in that area. So I'm just asking for you to realise that we don't want money, or they don't want money. They just want a little bit of recognition, a little bit of help, and a little bit of cooperation with Swale Borough Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens. The reason it's in the Chair's update this evening is because there is no actual budgetary decision to be taken here. The motion was after support, and there is no officer paper generated for this item either, for very similar reasons. I would just like to add that other bit of my work between the last meeting and this meeting, I did attend the Green Grid meeting, which was oddly enough held in Faversham, with a presentation by the Faversham Creek Trust talking about very similar issues to your motion. So as part of this item, I would like to ask for members' support, that if we are supporting the Sittingbourne group to do this, if it comes forward that the Faversham group would also like similar support, I do feel it's the right thing to do to offer that support across both groups. I'm not aware that the island or any other groups exist at the moment to require that support. But members, I will take questions on it. Councillor MacDonald.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The responsibility for Milton Creek is Midway and Swale, Quango. There is a Quango, and obviously the Environment Agency as well, who I think, frankly, and I don't find this defamatory, but in a lot of ways they're quite negligent. So they've got to be pushed, frankly. They'd rather be spending money on new motors and, they've let us down on the island an awful lot. But as far as the creek's concerned, it's better than it was because the paper mills have all shut, and it used to smell dreadfully at one time because of the effluent from the paper mills. But definitely it's got to be controlled. And as I say, I think it's Medway and Swale, I forget the name of the authority, but there's all these quangos, and it's their actual responsibility as part of the Environment Agency. Thank you.
Lovely. So Hayden, sorry, Councillor Bourne, apologies.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to thank Councillor Stephen and Councillor Wise for putting this forward at full council. It's a shame that it has to be here, and it's a shame that a member of the council took the decision to ask for it to be referred and then himself walked out of full council when his own item that he had put forward ended up with exactly the same conclusion. But I'd be happy to support Councillor Stephen with this.
Lovely, excellent. Carol?
Thank you, Chair. I also support and I also agree with your suggestion to include Faversham, because Faversham has for a long time battled pollution to our creek. And I was talking to the Mayor, Councillor Martin, and she said all the sink ports seem to be suffering from this. So if we can all join forces, more the merrier. Thank you.
Lovely. Councillor Martin?
Thank you, Chair. There seems to be some preempting of an emotion that I've already put in. Just in that term, fully support on this one. I don't think we had a formal seconding of it, so I'm more than happy to formally second on this. And yes, in terms of the visible pollution in all our creeks and waterways, it may be a bit better. I haven't seen the physical data on the amount of E. coli in Milton Creek, but I can say that the volume of E. coli recorded in Faversham Creek is officially off the scale, in that the scale does not go anywhere near high enough for the volume of E. coli recorded. So that gives you an idea of just how bad it really is, and to the point where community events that would traditionally include such things as walking the plank and pole running over water could not take place for health and safety reasons. So more than happy to support, and I hope everyone does tonight again. And obviously, similar to last night, give the chair full kudos to sign any letters, any documentation required to give support to try and get these matters resolved.
Excellent. Appears we're going in a very positive direction. Councillor Marchington?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just to inform you all, Queenborough Council is undertaking water testing in Queenborough Creek at the moment, has been for several months now. We're doing twice weekly checks on the high tide level in Queenborough Creek, and also on the high tide level at the bottom of the causeway. So we've got the incoming water from the Thames comparable to what's in the creek, and I'm sure we'd be only too pleased to share our results with you, and likewise we'd like to see the results from yourselves. So to compare us up, just let you know. Thank you.
That's brilliant, and thanks for adjusting my information. I didn't know Queenborough Town Council were doing that, but I think we can all absolutely see that we're very much in support of any group that decides to take on that responsibility, because it's all volunteers. They're all putting their time in for the good of the community. So if something comes forward from Queenborough Town Council or ward councillors in Queenborough, then I think you can see by the room that you'll have hopefully a positive reception for that. Anyway, so we've had a proposer, we've had a seconder. We'll just take a quick vote just to make it all amazing. So all in favour of supporting the work around the Sittingbourne group? Yep, that's unanimous. Lovely. Thank you very much, members. Lovely. So moving on to the next one, which is in a fairly similar vein. I would like to talk to members this evening about sending a letter to Southern Water from the Environment Committee to raise awareness of local water issues around supply and around wastewater. I'm happy for officers and myself to draft the letter and to send it round to spokes for a possible invite to a meeting or a briefing to come to the Environment Committee to talk about some very clear issues that have been raised. Happy to take comments on this. Councillor Martin?
we're preempting something again. It's all good. But I would also ask that you add South East Water, given that everyone east of Tenham is South East Water, and we're the area with the hosepipe ban. And I know Alistair and Rich aren't here, but I can speak for their area, I think, on this and say they're a bit fed up at the top of the hill with having no water for long periods of time, whilst others have paddling pools filled just the other side of a random line in the borough.
Yep, more than happy to include the other water company at the other end of the borough. Absolutely. Councillor Stevens?
Yeah, it's heartwarming that Faversham have got a similar problem, and even Queenborough. Not saying that that's a problem that I would bequest on anybody, but looking at the way it's going, we could have some collaboration between Faversham and Queenborough to make sure that we're working on the same path and going in the same direction and using the same resources, and rather than just working alone. I think if they're in agreement, I can put this forward to Raybell Charters, because I know that any help from anywhere, and if we've got something that's useful for them to pass on, then I think it's a good idea that we do get together. So, we're looking at contacting the water companies. Is it worth doing it for all three areas, or should we or are you thinking of just doing it for Milton Creek and then Faversham and then Queenborough?
So the support for the motion, the letters for the motion will be sent specifically in support of the motion. The invite to the water companies to come to the Environment Committee will be expanded to include other member issues. What I'm hoping is that we'll be able to expand that discussion beyond members' obvious concerns around planning. Absolutely. Because actually this piece of work was generated from an email from Councillor Bonney, who sent me an email. Oh, Councillor Bonney, would you like to explain the email rather than me explaining it for you? Do apologise. Didn't see your hand up.
That's all right. You can summarise it briefly because I can't remember what I wrote, but I'll then chip in afterwards so I don't overreach you.
Fair enough. So the email from Councillor Bonney was that actually we had some form of something in the water off of Minster Beach. And actually, I'm not sure if it was proved to be whatever it was, but the accountability for the water companies comes back again and again. We're very lucky on the island, potentially, that we don't seem to be as hard hit from the water issues that come out of some of the other swimming areas. But again, that's just luck. So we know that we've got water issues on a number of different levels. So it would be prudent to ask them to attend, especially as we've got modelling from other councils where Southern Water have attended and provided that sort of information. Whether they'll choose to come to a briefing or whether they'll choose to be in a public meeting, I don't know, meeting in public. I think it's worth sending the letter and seeing if we can at least invite them to hold them to some sort of information giving opportunity. Councillor Bonney, did you want to come back quickly?
Yes, if I may. So I don't know how many of you have got the Surfers Against Sewage app. It's really quite useful. It tells you all about bathing water quality and the constant monitoring that's done from around the country. So on one of the hottest days of the year, obviously Minster Beach was one of the ones that was affected, and we actually had our seafront officers going down and advising people not to go in the sea. That's how bad it was. So that has a direct impact, not on just our visitors, but our residents. Watched the documentary that was all about the water companies and what they were doing to our waterways. You will see that from around Queenborough and Rushendon, in fact, that was featured in the docudrama about how they weren't handing over information to the regulator, and they were withholding information. And the Surf Against Sewage app shows sort of real-time data, and you can go in and see how many times our beaches around Swale have been affected by this pollution. It then feeds back into what we were saying about Milton Creek and also about Faversham. And so this is all about wastewater treatment and what's been going on. So we know that, and I speak having done quite a lot of research with the Five Parishes group, that constantly the Sittingbourne wastewater treatment plant is so over capacity that the only way that they can deal with that is to release directly into the creek. And that is why we are seeing the E. coli levels at such a terrible percentages and readings there. So that's wastewater. But the other issue that we face is the other significant one is supply. And I'm a bit cheesed off, quite frankly, is watching the news and seeing about Tunbridge and Westmoreland, and the issues around Canterbury and Whitstable, but they always forget what's happened in Swale. And earlier this year, in January, when all those issues were going on, it was my villages, some of my residents who were cut off. And we're being regularly cut off. We've got housing estates just around the edge of Sittingbourne that are suffering from, that's Carries Ward, suffering from really low water pressure. And this is Southern rationing water because it's having to divert it to Southeastern. And it's meaning people can't run washing machines, run showers, etc. And the water reservoir behind Cromer's Woods, which is part of the Highstead Park development that supplies the Isle of Sheppey, there's been real concern within the water company about how they deliver water to Sheppey and the impact of the reservoir levels there, because they couldn't pump enough water around the system in Kent to maintain that. And we've got water bowsers continually feeding the Hollingbourne reservoir, trying to top it up to keep the pressure in the system. So there is a fundamental problem across Swale. So it's not just on Sheppey, it's not just in Sittingbourne, it's all across the borough with both supply and waste. So I'm more than happy to help Dolly. I can give you some information. It's a fundamental problem that they're going to have going forward about how they continue to supply and treat our waste. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bonney. So that is my full intention to contact Southern Water to ask them to brief in. We've been very successful. Luckily, our officers have been. We've asked them to contact the Environment Agency, and they'll come back with very positive results on potential briefings for those. Sorry, Martin, did you want to come back on that?
Yeah, it was just a question about timing, really, as you just mentioned there. For the ahead of the October Environment Committee, we've already lined up representatives from the Environment Agency to attend to talk about illegal waste and coastal erosion. So is it something, given that it is probably across all areas of the council, would we be looking at a separate briefing, or do you want it ahead of an Environment Committee? Because otherwise the next time that would be January, and I think it would be well probably quite a long way away, or too far away.
Oh, well, I'm more than happy to suggest a full members briefing, because I think this touches lots of different areas of the council. So maybe that's something I need to take up with the leader to see if we can make it a full members briefing, perhaps before full council. They're the members briefings that get the most attendance, and just because we're there for the meeting, so it might be worth doing that. That's a brilliant suggestion, but we obviously would really like member support for the Environment Agency briefing, because they are very important to attend, and it's what you guys have asked me to put forward. So we are pushing on that scale as well. Councillor Martin.
Thank you. I managed to open up the document that's already gone off to Robin and Co. I'd actually suggest that we do it as a special meeting of full council. so that it is in public and every member has the opportunity to question, scrutinise and make those chief executives squirm until they actually do the work and the job that they are being paid an absolute fortune to do. They are paid to ensure that we have adequate water supply, that we have adequate water pressure for all our residents, and that our sewage and wastewater is treated effectively. They are not doing that, and we need to be holding them to account.
Whereas I might agree with that, I'm going to be pushing to get them in the building. That's my overall objective. If they would like to come to a public meeting, ideal, but I would like to get them into the building. Sorry, Councillor Marchington, no, Councillor MacDonald was first, were you not?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. There's obviously we get pollution coming down the Thames as well, and the Medway, so that needs to be monitored. Because it's the responsibility of presumably of Thames Water further up. I did catch Southern Water out about 3 years ago because we had, again on Sheppey, the sewage treatment plant is at Rushendon, and that tips out into the Swale. And they tipped a load of material out because they said, oh, we had too much. Well, there hadn't been any rain for months on Sheppey. So I actually caught them out, and that was to save them having to process it, frankly. The facility at in Milton Creek was expanded, but with increasing development all the time, it's now inadequate, frankly. I don't know the situation at Faversham, but I expect the same. But Faversham, because of the tidal flow, Faversham would get some of the pollution down from both Milton and from Rushendon. So that's what causes part of the problem, I'm sure.
Lovely. Okay, and last one, Councillor Ball.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Obviously, I would endorse any thing to get those chief executives into the building. We have supported that at P2PWG to get them in here and discuss with them. And also by that time, hopefully, there is a by-election coming up in Clacton and we can get a policy through Parliament to make them swim in the water to see how they like it.
No comment. I do apologise. I will let Councillor Shell come in because I didn't see his hand up on the screen there. Apologies, Councillor Shell.
Yeah, that's okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick one on the Rushendon site. I did visit that probably just over a year ago again, and they have a new silo that they've brought online to help with storm storage, but I still don't think it's good enough. But the guys there are really happy if members want to book and go and visit, which I think would be great so that we can see their side of what's happening, so that when we go into any briefing, we've got a bit of back knowledge. But that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, only because myself and Councillor Marchington have visited a water situation. Was it the drainage board we went to? Is that what Councillor Shell is speaking about, or is he talking about the treatment plant that's further at the back?
Yes, we've had meetings with Homes England before, and of course on behalf of Swale, I'm one of the board members and the financial director for the Medway Drainage Board, which is now North Kent Marshes, I believe. You know, that keeps me quite busy.
It does.
And we've got someone from the Environment Agency coming down to meet me on the Laysdown Beach on the 8th of August. So we're meeting about the problems of the silt build up that's causing the ditches not drain into the sea. It's such a build up. It's a gully that's just full of silt. So what's supposed to be clear water to fill with land water coming off when the flap shuts at high tide, it's already blocked up.
Yes.
So when it opens up, there's no outgoing water rush to clear the silt, you know.
So as we can see, there's
So they're to come
a large amount of water issues, isn't there?
We involved with ditches all the time. And just as a quick one, it was Ray Bell Chargers that came and sourced the Queen and set us up.
So
we're
I
on
will
the same,
just
we're on the
say
same hymn sheet. Thank you.
that site visits we will take that back to officers, because that obviously involves a bit more organisation and support for that. But in principle, I don't disagree with that course. Now, those are the items in the chair's update that required member input. I'm just going to run through the last bit so that we can actually move on to the substantial agenda items this evening. Okay. Car parking motion was also taken at full council. That is now on the committee forward plan for October. Budget briefing that was held just before this meeting. All parties had the opportunity to feed into or be at the budget briefing, and they need to feed back via their groups for that work to progress and go forward for the budget discussions next year. I've attended the Kent and Medway Members Environment Board. I spoke on items to support Swales issues with fly tipping and access issues around our household recycling centres, because I'll just use my own area as the example. I've got 38% of people that do not drive, 38% of people are still paying council tax, and 38% of people are unable to access their household recycling centre because obviously the access is by car or transport only. So I felt it was a relevant thing to add to that meeting. Amongst other things discussed was the Kent Conference, leading the fight against fly tipping in Kent. However, for the second time, I was disappointed to see no attendance from the cabinet member or the deputy cabinet member leading the fight against fly tipping. Maybe they'll be at the conference. We'll see. I've also attended 2 SIG Group coastal erosion meetings, where one presentation included input from the Southern Regional Flood and Coastal Committee. I've made contact to explore any opportunities on behalf of Swale members to support our area. I will also be asking for officer support to action anything that is identified around our existing service priorities. Blue flags have gone up on the island. Very pleased to go along and support the beach team to support all their hard work. And of course, this year we are celebrating 25 years of the RNLI providing lifeguards to our beaches. Not only does this help maintain our blue flag award, but it helps our bathing areas stay safer and provides some seasonal employment also. The ACT team have been very active in the borough over the last few months. They've been extremely well received by residents, and the social value of that contract for supporting prison citizenship work is exactly what this council should be doing. I was very pleased to attend the Granville Road project in Sheerness. Partnership work was achieved in collaboration with the Town Council, Kent Fire and Rescue, and residents coming out to litter pick that area at the same time. Congratulations to the waste team for a really super model for potential future work, looking at the partnership model there. It was really excellent to be part of that work, which thankfully brings my chair's update to a conclusion. Right then, let's move on to the next item, which is the forward decision-making plan, and this is items for noting. So, would we like to note it, or would anybody like to have any comments or questions about the forward plan for the committee? Councillor Martin.
Sorry, visiting member being a pain. In terms of the climate and ecological emergency draft annual report, is that going to include any recommendations for climate change resilience and mitigations? I'm looking at this building in particular at the moment and going, we're having to run temporary air conditioning units because we did a great job insulating and then didn't do the climate mitigation work afterwards.
Yep.
I believe that was aimed at me, but through you, Chair. So the new action plan, which obviously this committee endorsed and then full council approved, absolutely has some sections in it that relate to adaptation rather than just carbon saving. It's clear that we are needing to adapt our communities and our lifestyles. I think the last couple of months have given rise to that, and why we're all very hot and bothered in this chamber. So absolutely, obviously the annual report is a look back at what we've done this year. There's already been some work done where we're looking to look at future local area energy plans, how we can reduce down our energy usage, but obviously work done in the local plan around tree coverage and shade and design of building, etc. We're not all built for extremes of cold and extremes of hot as buildings. And so, yeah, absolutely, there's been some progress on that this year.
Lovely, and that's a correct point for me to highlight that there is a climate change working group that operates through this committee. We attended today. It would be lovely to see more councillors attend that working group, because it's attended by such a lot of good work from officers with updates that affect committee work but potentially won't come to committee because there's no budgetary work, or it's stuff that's based around the decisions already been taken by the council. So I would definitely recommend that. And sometimes working groups work around one person from each party attending. If you want to attend, let me know, and I'll make sure there's an invite for Environment Committee members, because it is such a useful piece of work. Councillor Stevens.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I was invited. I didn't even know I was part of it, but so I refused. But then my wife was on there, so I thought I was asked to join again. So I thoroughly enjoyed it. Very informative. The officers were doing a grand job, and everything we asked, they gave us a reply on, and it was very encouraging, the work that they're doing. And I'd like to congratulate all officers that attended that meeting. It was informative. It was one of I hate meetings, but this was a good meeting to attend, even in the heat. Thank you very much.
So lots of that praise should go to Dr. Gould, actually, who was the previous chair of that working group under the previous chair of the Environment Committee. Done a sterling job at not only encouraging officers to come forward, but encouraging discussion and cross-party elements from planning, from environment situations. So it really is an excellent meeting. If you can attend, it would be really lovely to see you. So if you've got nobody else commenting or questions for the forward plan, we'll move on to the next item, which is item number 8, Barton's Point Coastal Park, future management. Please, could the officer introduce the report, please?
Hi there, Stephen Gill, Green Space Department. So I'm just presenting our paper regarding the future options for Barton's Point. As many of you will be aware, in 2022 the council seeked to have a more commercial income on the site. Part of that process, there was an undertaking of an ecological report. That report highlighted the site's importance, and then we've got a hand up. Oh, okay. With that, it was shown that basically the council would not achieve the commercial income that they required, and therefore we had to look at other options for the site and how to improve it. Part of that was the working group was formed. It was a cross-party group. And we looked at various different issues on the site and how they could be improved. Our recommendations are laid out in section 2.6 of the report, and it covers areas such as the concession, i.e. the CAF, grounds maintenance, site usage for education, lake management, other site users, the drainage project, events, and the future management of the site. So yeah, any questions on the report?
Councillor Baum.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to thank the officers, the working group, and everyone who's been a part of this. It's hugely exciting, and hopefully it will fulfill the potential that it has. I think that is entirely dependent on whether we get the right education provider to be on that site. So could I ask what discussions, without naming anyone, have taken place, and when you expect there could be a service provider in position to take that?
Yep. Stephen?
So as yet we haven't approached anyone, so it'd be on a EOI basis. When the concession is next sort of out, it would sort of join part of that process. Didn't know whether maybe Martin wanted to elaborate slightly more on that.
Yep, Martin.
Yeah, I mean, as without preempting the decision of this committee, if approved, we would go away work up the expressions of interest and put it out so that rather than just approaching people, put it out through the Kent procurement portal, and then that means anyone that delivers those type of education activities will see it and be able to be involved in the conversation. So it will be a wider base rather than just targeting it at one or two individuals.
So I think as part of the working group, I think part of our discussion was around making sure we had long enough to attract the most amount of interest, because obviously the Boathouse Cafe has been offered as a concession previously. You can see in the recommendation from the working group that there was a few changes in terms of the preferred option would be a potential CIC or group with a heavy interest in social support, social awareness in there. But the education element for Barton's Point is brand new. So I think it's really important that we give it give it a good push to make sure that we can make it as successful as possible if it's decided by members to pass that this evening. Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to thank the officers, because actually sitting on the working group, and this report pretty much is word for word what we've all said on the working group, and I just really appreciate the way the report has come out. So I just wanted to thank everyone.
Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, sorry, I missed the last working group one, but I was on the earlier ones. I guess we're probably approaching it because I was looking at Monkton's Nature Reserve in its little quarry, and it's great to see how they've collaborated with lots of different education groups. Been there quite a few times with my youngsters over time. But that's the sort of thing I imagine, I guess, that will go with that is contacting all those different wildlife groups, CRAG and see what may come of or be interested in. And I noticed that I missed the bit that was around how the cafe might be delivered, because it'd be great. I heard that it was encompassing the spirit of the place now, which will be more wildlife based rather than commercial based. And with that in mind, is there? I'm guessing there'll be a little package that we can grab that I can sort of hand to people that might be interested, that might otherwise not be on your list, if as such.
So this piece of work obviously spans the economy committee as well, because what happens is, obviously after the previous idea for Barton's Point kind of fell out of bed because of the ecology report, thank goodness from my point of view, contracts are organised and held by the economy. That's within their remit. So if you are interested, then I recommend probably going to speak to one of the officers that are in that department who've got the experience of how they put out those expressions of interest and things like that. Because what I don't want to get too bogged down into from this committee's point of view is stuff that doesn't sit within our base of service provision, if that makes sense. But there is no reason why any councillor can't contact an officer and ask for some general input after it is obviously passed through the economy committee, because I'm assuming what happens is we have to ratify this, or we have to vote in favour or not vote in favour of this, and then it will be passed back to economy for their input with it.
So obviously the recommendations span various departments, so it would be fed back into each department. Yes. So we have consulted with the property team, who basically advised that, you know, it could be part of the EOI and something that is weighted against in the basically the evaluation.
And I have queried the report. On the recommendations, there is a minimum level of income that they would like to receive from the concessions, but that could be potentially split between the two concessions, or a different value from each of those. Because what I also don't want to see is people being put off from a really good potential project in the area just because there's a price figure attached to it. But that's really in their remit rather than ours. Anyway, does anybody else have any questions or comments regarding the officer's recommendation? Elliot?
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, we've just done a bit about water quality. I think it'd be interesting to find out what the water quality is at Barton's Point. I know there's been Facebook chatter, which doesn't often mean much, but about water quality issues there. I think when the expressions of interest come out, I think like before, they need to go out on Facebook. I think the portal's lovely, but so many people and groups don't look at that. I only found out about one opportunity we had going here for the Danny Dyer caravan show. So if councillors don't know, I'm not sure we're not targeting the right people. So I think I bang about comms so much, but we need to get our comms right. We discussed getting a memorandum of understanding with the Sea Cadets, and I think we should attach that at the bottom of one of these items, one of these proposals. I know the Parish Council, which I'm part of, have expressed an interest in the site, and if we're looking at ways to save money, that may possibly be a way for this council to save its grass cutting bill in this area. I'm looking forward to the Friends group starting. I know there's other local Friends groups that do really well, and having Walden input on this site will be an advantage for the island. So I think at recommendation 5 we can slot in about creating a memorandum of understanding, as the Sea Cadets are a neighbour to us rather than a leasee like the other site users. Of course, we could already have a classroom in place for the education through the PIP impact funding, but that's voted against. On section 3, we mentioned about Green Flag Award. Obviously, we first discussed this back in December, so we're closer to 1 year. So I think we should reduce that to a 1 year target if possible. As we're 7 months on now from when the working group first, 8 months on from when the working group first wanted this. I know there is organisations out there, charities that would want to run the CAF and the education side, and the CAF could be education through learning food preparation and workplace skills they could then use elsewhere once they leave the care of charities. Could be through NEETs. At 3.3, it's mentioned about the old bike track. This is currently used by dog walkers as it isn't secure, and I think rightly so, it should be used, but at the moment access is risky in certain areas, and I think the objective of that is to make it safe for people to use. I just want to finish and say officers were brilliant on this working group, and so I propose that we add about putting a memorandum of understanding in place with the Sea Cadets, and I will make a declaration on that. And I've mentioned my parish council, so I'll make a declaration on that as well. Both non-pecuniary.
That's fair enough. I absolutely agree that the one piece of work that the working group did undertake was a question around that piece of land at the top of Barton's Point. I know there are some issues that need to go, but are we any further forward in answering that particular question from members at all?
Currently, the work there hasn't started. What we was going to wait to do with a lot of these is wait for the recommendations to be complete, such as one being Ranger being active on the site, which would be heavily involved in that. One of the key issues with that part of the site is it has got a lot of old lead shot in it. So if we have to be very conscious of how we open up the site, because if you get sort of e-bikes, crosser bikes, them sort of things going back in there like they did, they will kick up the dust, and obviously the lead could be exposed to public. So we need to ensure that if and when it is open, it is for pedestrian use only, because that is the way we will contain the lead in the ground rather than disturbing it, because the costs associated with sort of surveying and removing are astronomical.
So I'll just say that I think the obvious question there is that that site isn't secure. So if there is health concerns attached to that site, then it really needs us to possibly answer those questions anyway, irrelevant of what we want to use the site for in future. So that may be a possible question that members would like to come back to at another point regarding Barton's Point. But I think probably on a number of sites on Sheppey, if you slightly dig down for about 18 inches, you're going to come across quite a number of ex-military sites, because that's the site's heritage. So I definitely take that point. But, for example, Pete might back me up on this, Rose Street School in the area has a primary school in it, and that's always been historically a contaminated site as well. So there are ways around that sort of thing, and it seems a shame to be losing that input for potentially young people doing something that they're really invested in, as they have just lost their skate park out of Sheerness as well. It's just a possibility that I think possibly we could come back to. Sorry, Councillor Jace, did you want to come back?
Yes, thank you, Chair. People are accessing the site now, whether it's on foot or by bike. So a nice A-frame to secure and prevent the bikes getting in, and signage to say don't use bikes because of the contamination. Use the site at your own risk, perhaps. But one thing I didn't mention was the drainage project. Under finance, it says we'll need to raise possibly another £167,000. The Sea Cadets have always had money set aside for this project, and there's nothing wrong with us going back to the Sea Cadets and see if we can wring a little bit more out.
So possible future discussions on that then. Yeah, I think I completely agree that whether we do anything or not with that site, if there's a risk to the site, then we should be making sure that we're taking that seriously on some level. Martin?
Yeah, I just wanted to pick up on some of the points. Completely agree with wider promotion of the expression of interest. The portal's not always accessible. You only get your updates if you're already logged into it. So I completely agree. Pick up the same with Councillor Thompson. We will, whilst we won't actively target people, we will have conversations through the Green Grid and others where we know other areas have got education providers. The memorandum of understanding with the Sea Cadets, I wasn't at the working groups, so if that was raised and we've missed that, apologies, but we will absolutely look to have that conversation, and that can go hand in hand potentially with funding conversations as well. I disagree with the position on the green flag application. It's not a small application. It takes a very long time to do that. We haven't started because obviously it was dependent upon the recommendations. So to cut that down by a year would set officers an almost impossible target. So I disagree with that one, and I agree we need to secure land. It's one of the joys of looking after so much public space. Comes with that many risks, and obviously it becomes a risk balance of some we tolerate and some we don't. But on this one, clearly we need to have another look. So we'll take that as an action.
Stephen, can you just confirm about this memorandum of understanding? I don't remember that being spoken about, but I do remember that we did talk about agreements between, like, for example, putting on the stakeholder meeting. Can you refresh my memory, because I don't remember everything, unfortunately.
Off the top of my head, I can't say I do remember it. I know we was definitely going to start the stakeholder meetings that we'd done, but after each meeting, I did do sort of a pack of sort of minutes. So I will review, and if it's been missed, my apologies, and we'll go back to it.
Councillor Jays, would you accept that to go back over it and add it in if it has been missed off the notes?
Yeah, I know in the report it says about us meeting once more so that we can discuss it there.
Yes, it was after the potential recommendations have been accepted, wasn't it? Just to work out how we're going to actively make it work, really. Councillor Moore, apologies.
Yeah, I do remember it actually being mentioned about the memorandum of understanding between the Sea Cadets as they use the main lake as well as their bit of the lake. So I'd be happy to second Councillor Jay's on the extra recommendation.
So what I'm interested in is making sure that we don't use that to hold it up. Can we amend a recommendation to have that added in without it having to come back for us to check the wording on that? Would that be suitable?
Yeah, through you, Chair. I mean, Councillor Jays has proposed, Councillor Moore has seconded. So
can we
put it to the vote?
All in favour of adding the memorandum of understanding to the recommendations for this evening for Barton's Point? Yep, that looks like unanimous. Yep, lovely. So that's passed. Brilliant. Councillor MacDonald.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Well done. I did do a plan a long time ago for connecting the as a rising main to the sewer, so that I'm not sure whether your water bill, knowing Southern Water, whether they charge you for return to sewer and things like that. But they shouldn't do, because you have to pay for, and I think you could save quite a lot of money once the a rising main is put in from the existing toilet block. I'm quite happy to do it, and I don't want anything for it. But I know exactly where the sewers are on the council-owned site, and I did put the connections for the little holiday camp site there as well. So I know exactly where the sewers are, and I think that would be quite a good option, because it would then save an awful lot of money, because at the moment you're paying, the contractors to take foul water away, which costs a fortune.
So, absolutely, ring fencing that money, I think, was the right thing to do to make sure it's safeguarded for the drainage project. And then, obviously, if more funding does come forward, then we know where to put it. Councillor Jay's already given some interesting ideas about where we could possibly look for the extra funding. So, I'm going to take all the recommendations in one go. We don't have to. Yep. Can we get a proposer and a seconder?
I'll propose, Chair.
Councillor Jay, is your propose? Councillor Moy, second. So all in favour of the Barton's Point work? Yep, that looks like unanimous. Members, I'm going to break for a 5-minute break now. It's a very hot meeting, and I think that we need just a 5-minute before we come back to carry on with the rest of the agenda items. Thank you. Are we all back? So, Councillor MacDonald, you're going to be sitting down. It's all right. Are we all back from that 5-minute break? Lovely job. Are we all right? Members, we're going to restart the meeting now. So, off we go. Right, can we just remind members to speak into your microphone? So having a little bit of trouble hearing people above the fans. And then hopefully we should be able to hear each other. Can you let us know during the meeting if you are having difficulty hearing people, because we need to give everything due consideration as we go. So, welcome back. We're going to move on to item 9, which is the annual performance report for the Waste Collection and Street Cleansing Service, 25 to 26. Please, could we have Alistair introducing the report? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This is actually Officer Kelly Mehmet's report. She's unable to be here this evening, so I've said I'll present it on her behalf. It's the annual report. It updates on progress since the last interim committee update, which was 6 months ago, and it highlights some of those successes over the past year. I'd like to mention the partnership with Suez and KCC on food waste. A combination of food bin provision in previously hard to reach areas, education, encouragement has resulted in the highest increase in food waste capture across Kent. That's one of the highlights of the report. Obviously, the best option is to avoid any food waste, but where it is being created and disposed of at the curbside, we really want this to go into the food bins. And the latest figures which supersede the report are that the Swale has collected over 80% more food waste this year than last year. And it's early days, but that seems to correlate with a decrease in the residual waste, which is great news, as it's not only the best environmental option for unavoidable curbside food waste, but it's a far better financial option than incinerating the food waste. The team have also worked with Suez and KCC on a contamination pilot, which has been very successful. It focused on areas where we were regularly getting whole loads rejected due to contamination. I won't bore you with the details, you can read about them in the report, but the outcome of that pilot is that no loads of recycling have been rejected on those rounds where we've invested the time to engage with the residents to make sure they're doing the right thing. So that pilot is now being rolled out wider across Kent, but it was trialled here in Swale, and we're going to try and upscale it within Swale as well. So hopefully we'll see some more positive work there on more quality recycling. Just to pick out a few of the headlines, because I'll be feeling like I'm doing Kelly an injustice if I don't. Nearly all rounds were completed on their scheduled day. The pattern of miscollections continues to fall. The recycling rate increased this year by 2% based upon last year's figures. The report refers to a section on assisted collections, as I know this committee were keen to see that within the report. And the data shows improvements for these customers too. And all of this data is supported by a clear downward trend in complaints. And dare I say it, a few compliments creeping through as well, especially in the recent hot weather where crews have been working really hard to collect all the waste that's out there. With regards to streets, the overhaul in street cleansing routes has been completed by Suez, and that's been uploaded. This has taken longer than we had anticipated. The new rounds are still being tweaked and should be finalised soon. Once finalised, the QR codes, which we spoke about in this committee before, will start to work, and performance reports should take a big step forward. And the last point I'll make, the Suez annual report was attached for information. Also attached was the Suez social value report. And regarding social value, I know we've mentioned it before, but the Upcycle Your Skills programme was launched here in Swale, and now it's being replicated in many other Suez contract areas. And I know we spoke about it, but when it comes to tangible outcomes, this initiative, as we all recognised previously, has had some excellent outcomes. Thank you.
Lovely. So I've got Carol, you're the first hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Although greatly improved, I'm pleased to say, we have had a few steps backwards concerning the almshouses and their communal bins. Hopefully that has now been resolved. And indeed today I've had a contact from Gange Mews in the Abbey Ward, which has been 4 weeks, or over 4 weeks, I believe, in one of their stores not being collected. I did speak to an officer earlier today over this and was assured that it has now been signed off. So I'm waiting to find out if that is correct. Okay, thank you.
Would you like to come back on communal collections?
I did see an email about Gange Mews today, and I believe it has been collected today. But yeah, I'd need to check it off. But I am very much aware the officer is working with you and residents there.
And also, you know, I'm hoping the Gange Mews that the almshouses has been. I haven't had any complaints today. I know Caroline always gets in touch with me.
And I do know the officers have a hotspot list.
Yeah.
And I know both those premises are on there. So they are absolutely working with the contractor to make sure that goes right.
Thank you.
Councillor Wall.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a few things. I'd just like to start off by asking regarding the QR codes on our litter bins, what kind of uptake have you noticed once those have been introduced? And are there particular details, ward by ward, on where it's working and where it isn't working?
Yeah, the QR codes aren't active at the moment. One of our officers has been attending all of the assets, all of the litter bins, making sure the asset register is accurate. What the QR codes will enable is residents to quickly report an issue with any litter bin. So yeah, there's, from what I recall, there's a whole list of issues regarding the bin that residents can pick quickly, and then that will ping through to the contractor immediately, and they'll be able to respond in the most effective way by getting that message straight away.
Thank you. The reason I ask is because I'd like to say is, why don't we have some conviction as a council regarding this? A lot of the QR codes that I've seen in my ward along Sheerness High Street, they are peeled off very quickly. So I'm not sure we're going to get the right response that we want in regards to them actually being used. So I've been to Maidstone before, and they have plaques on the side of the bins that have these QR codes on. And yes, I understand there would probably be a budgetary implication regarding that. But if we want this to work and if we want a more efficient service, which this can deliver, I feel that the better move would be to move towards those plaques. Some other things on the Suez annual report, Mid-Kent. I just want to ask a couple of questions about why are the only council broadly that are reporting hazard observations on page 60? Why are Ashford reporting hazard observations, yet Maidstone and Swale, we're not really reporting those? And the other thing on page 61, under near misses, they're pretty low across the board for all the councils. We tend to be reporting the most, Maidstone a second, Ashford reporting negligible amounts. Yet for us in February 2026, for some reason we reported about 70, and I'm not sure what, because that seems like a statistical anomaly to me.
Should we let officers come back on those points? Martin, do you want to start?
Yeah, so the near misses, I mean, I would imagine there was a spike. Quite often that will be around, supervisors may have done what's called a toolbox talk, which when they send the drivers out, it stays in their memory for a little while, and they report everything. Some depots are better than others, so that's where when you see the hazard reporting and everything, others will, somebody might record something, somebody else might not record something. So there's a little bit of inconsistency in the reporting on that. on the plaques versus the stickers, we originally did have an issue with the stickers, and they were replaced by the company in full with a different product. So we're more hopeful of that. Clearly, what we can't stop is people pulling them off or vandalising as we do. And clearly, if that becomes a regular occurrence, we may well have to look at alternative options for that. The form itself, you used to have to go through about 8 pages to fill out your name and details and everything like that. It's literally 2 clicks now. You can say the bin's on fire, the bin's full, and a couple of other things. You don't need to leave your name now or anything, unless you particularly want feedback that it's been emptied. But it should be a much cleaner, slicker process to be able to do that. And we're looking to do that with all of our forms as well, really trying to streamline those. There was your first point that I was going to come back on, Hayden. Councillor Braun, and I can't remember what it was. Okay, no, before that. I'll come back.
Alistair? You got anything to add?
No, nothing to add.
Councillor Braun, do you feel that all your points were answered there?
I thought they were all answered. I'd also like to thank you for answering, Kelly for writing the report, Alistair for delivering it, and of course Suez via the Mid-Ken shared service for providing that pile of data for us to go through.
Lovely. Right, Shelley.
Thank you, Chair. Last year, I actually asked the question about communal areas and food bins, and I'm really pleased to see that that's being done now, and the uptake on the food bins is fantastic. So very good. Thank you.
So, is that the 41% increase that you're highlighting there? Yes, I thought that was very impressive. Have you got some sort of magic wand you've applied to the system to see that sort of data increase?
No magic wand. I think it's the passion of the officers and the clear comms and the fact that they've been out, they've been talking to the residents. I think there's a will from the residents to do it. I think they just needed some assistance in making sure they do it right, and especially in communal properties, they were some of these hard to reach areas, and the officers have taken the time to engage with the residents, find out what works for them, and hopefully this is going to continue.
Well, on that first page of the report with the statistical data that was there, there's like you could, I don't know, throw a stone and hit multitudes of points of data that have actually improved. For example, our bulky collections, often a subject mentioned by members. That's a 600 increase in the use of bulky collections. I'm not saying they fixed all the problems, but that's what members wanted. They wanted progress on bulky collections, and they've given you progress on bulky collections. Yep, Martin.
Yeah, from my point of view, it's really good that the committee are recognising, if you think where we were 2 years ago, with most of you contacting me daily, it's really nice. And for it's very often that I can sit here and say the percentage increase in food waste in Swale was the highest across the whole of the county. So we were the highest performing borough in the county for this last year, and that's absolutely through the real hard work. We've invested money in the project officers as a council, and we're starting, and that both with the food waste and with the contamination campaign. When you think how many loads of recycling we were saying, I'm really sorry, we're going to have to burn that instead of recycle it. Those strides forward show the work that both Suez as a contractor and obviously Alistair's team are doing, and we're really, really pleased with the progress this year.
Excellent. Councillor Jays.
Thank you, Chair. The social value report is one of all 3 authorities. I think we really need one specifically for Swale. I don't care what's happening in Ashford and Maidstone, and I'm sure our residents don't care about the social value effects in their areas. They care in our areas. So if next year or next time we can have a Swale specific one, I think we do need to thank the frontline staff who've been working this heat and keeping the service going. Please, can we get some deep cleans in the 3rd most populated area of the borough, which is Minster? Food waste is going brilliantly, and long may that continue. On page 18, where we've got the statistics, perhaps next year or next time we can have year by year comparisons side by side. I think then the results will really pop out on us.
I absolutely support that. I think I've already discussed that with officers because it would make that much easier. I did, however, hopefully that will be supported because I did make them go all the way back to the last report so that we could have the data in the meeting if anybody wanted to know what last year's statistics said. So that's an easy way of stopping me asking for that, isn't it? Just stick it on the report.
I'm wondering if fly tip garden waste, does that then get sent to compost, or is it just go in one truck to then end up in the refuge? It just popped out while I was reading the report again. Bulky waste has been mentioned. As I do every time we sit here and discuss this, I've checked when I can next get a bulky waste collection, and rather than it be 3 or 4 weeks' time, I've got the choice of the next 5 Fridays. So in 9 days' time, I could have bulky waste. Naturally, I'd like to see that I'd be able to get it this Friday, but as Friday's the only day you seem to do the island or Minster. But it is definitely massive progress from the month-long wait we did have at times. I know Councillor Bonney might want to mention what was said at the Economy and Property Committee last night. There was an item on town centres, and as is one of my pet peeves, fly posting was mentioned. We have barrow services in our town centres, and they daily walk past fly posting. I'd like to see next year or next time, as one of our statistics, we see how many pieces that Suez log how many pieces of fly posting. I was going to drive around the island and collect some up to bring to the meeting, but I think that might have been a bit over the top. So, and I haven't actually been on the island since 5 a.m. So, but we need the operatives to be taking it down. I'd like to see the statistics on that. The cleanliness of bins was mentioned at last night's meeting, largely stickers, and I know it's part of the contract, as is fly posting part of the contract. Apparently one of the large issues is vape stickers, and I know some people like to peel the stickers off their fruit and stick them on our bins. So I'm sure if members spot this, they should naturally log it. We need our town centres spruced up and not looking like the inside or outside of some of our dustbins sometimes. I've mentioned about jet washing before, and I know we was meant to have a lovely foam machine, but I'm not sure if that's ever arrived. What else have I got on here? Fly posting A249. It seems like we've pulled the string, and now they've started collecting well at the weekends, but they're now not collecting so well on weekdays. We just need to get Suez to balance that out correctly. I noticed street bins have slipped over the last week, which is a shame with this report coming. And I've also, if Suez want 3 of their black bins or food receptacles back, they seem to be dumped all over my ward in different spots. I can, if you want 3 back, I can definitely point in the right direction. It also mentions on here about the length of footpaths and bridleways. So Suez is responsible for cleaning our footpaths and bridleways, is mentioned on here.
Alistair?
Yeah, there's a few points that I didn't get the end of that. Are Suez responsible for clearing out?
So it mentions on here about we've got 30,000 metres of footpaths and bridleways. Does that mean Suez are meant to clean up our footpaths and bridleways? Because if so, I'll be reporting probably every footpath and bridleway on the island after this meeting.
Yeah, we've got, I mean, on that specific point, we have an appendix with all the pieces of the pathways and bridleways that we're responsible for cleaning. So if you've got some specific ones, that we can check them against the property in that appendix. If I can come back on a few of those other points, if I may.
Just to quickly say that I think Councillor Jays might also be referring to the amount of contractual time that we have with Suez, because obviously there are loads and loads of alleyways, bridleways, all sorts of things. And I think it's important to be transparent. We can obviously, take things from councillors, but I think it's important to be realistic about the timescale or how they will be looked at, because if they're expecting to put a report in about an alleyway or a bridle and then suddenly street cleansing hit it, that's not going to happen next week. It's not a fast turnaround at the moment, is it, for street cleansing and things like that?
Yeah, it's something we're working on. Trying to work with Suez to ensure we can provide the best service we can. But we've got to be realistic as well, as Councillor Worcester says. But yeah, if there are specific bridleways and footpaths, we can look at those, Elliot, and let you know whether Suez are responsible or not. With regards to the comment on a Swale specific social value report, we need to remember this is a Mid-Kent contract, so Suez will respond to the audience in being Mid-Kent. But as I tried to tease out in my introduction earlier, there are some real Swale specific ones where pilots have taken place in Swale. So I'm trying to make sure we do get our share, and I think we are. With regards to fly-tipped garden waste, it depends on what the team are picking up that day. If they're picking up 10 different fly tips, it might not be possible to do that, but they do try and separate waste where they can and take it to the right, place it in the right base where they can, but that's not always possible. Fly posting, we've got various operatives who work in the town centres. They should be taking down fly posting on public property. If that's not happening, we can remind them so and ensure that does start to happen. Likewise, we've got a few officers who are out and about as well, environment wardens. We don't have so many as we used to, but if they come across stuff, they'd also remove it. Cleanliness of bins. This is something I've raised through the Kent Resource Partnership. This isn't Swale specific. This is a lot of the stickers you talk about, Councillor Jays, are from vapes. What I've asked the Kent Resource Partnership, the KRP, to do is to engage with the two regulators who regulate the vape industry, see if we can design out that problem. That's where that is at the moment, to try and look at a solution not dissimilar to the plastic bottle industry and connecting the bottle tops via that little cord. And the last one, the bins dumped in your ward, if you come to us, we'll make sure somebody goes out and retrieves them. I don't know where they've come from, but we can put that one right if we've got the information.
It does seem, though, that our bins are something of a trophy, because I've seen a couple on display outside of houses in Sheppey, like they're something amazing to put on. When I was a teenager, it used to be that you used to nick a traffic cone or something on your way home after being a few bevies at the pub. Maybe that's what the bins have turned into. I don't know, but it'd be nice to get them back, wouldn't it, really, where they belong. Councillor Jays, I'm just going to go to Martin and then let you come back.
Yeah, I would hazard a guess that those bins are transfer bin, what we call transfer bins, and the operatives have maybe been a little bit too keen to jump into the truck to go home and forgotten the transfer bin. So yeah, let us know and we'll get them picked up. The only thing I just really wanted to single out Alistair actually for the bulky waste availability. He's been like an absolute pain in trying to resolve that, and it's taken multiple changes of polygons and the way we do it, but he's been relentless, and I'm really pleased to say that we are starting to see better availability now, which is great news.
Councillor Jays, you want to come back?
Just two more points, thank you, Chair. I think we need to look at reviewing the street barrow services. Perhaps, on odd days they can go to a different row, as we saw in Clarence Row. I think if we could get the barrow service to go down there once a week, as that's going to be a main thoroughfare as part of the levelling up, I think it just helped if, once a week they went through there. On the stickers, no food waste in here, please. We only stuck them on one of the two bins. I'm glad we haven't seen less recycling because people were dumping it in the recycling bin instead. But perhaps if we are going to do that campaign again, it goes on the blue bin and the green bin, so that it steers them to the only choice being the food waste bin. And I hope that will then see if we can double our statistics next year even better. Thank you, Chair.
Lovely. Martin?
And apologies, I forgot to mention, because I can see Councillor Bonney's hand up. I haven't told Alistair this yet, but Economy and Property made a recommendation to this committee around the fly posting element. So we'll pick that up.
The reason why I didn't put that up was because actually there is some confusion around what is fly posting and what is not. I remember speaking to one of the environmental health officers, and apparently circuses are allowed to put up their posters, or there's some interesting rules around that. So it might be also worth looking at a bit of sharing the rules around that. So what could be annoying us could actually be legitimate, allowed to be up. I don't know.
You're correct. The legislation is quite specific on what can and can't.
That's hilarious. I'm not correct. The environmental health officer was correct. I absolutely take no plaudits for that at all. Online members, I'm getting to you, but there is a list in the room, so I'll get to you as quick as I can. Councillor MacDonald.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yeah, I've just got two very quick points, actually. One is about food waste. I'm sorry I can't help you out at all. I was brought up in the war, so there never is any food waste. And all the peelings go on my compost heap, so for the vegetable garden. So, but anyway, that's just by the by. The other thing is what I do, and I don't know whether it's is things like these bottles. I whip the label off. Is that helpful to the recycling? Because if there's no label on it, or doesn't it matter?
It's a really good question. I don't think it matters. I think the lids were more of a problem, which is why they connected the cords on a lot of those bottles. But I don't think anybody's expected to remove it. So
If you are interested in removing labels like that, they can go into your soft plastics recycling that is picked up at the moment by most of the major supermarkets. So if you're going to Aldi or Tesco's, you can just take your I know it's not everything. I know that they sometimes don't recycle 100%, but if you're interested in removing that waste out of your bin, you can take it to a local supermarket potentially. Anyway, right. Do we want to come back on any of those points?
Just to say, hot off the press, as of 1st of April, we will be next year we'll be required to collect that soft plastics as well. It's currently being debated about how we will do that or won't do that, because there's some real problems with it that's being shared across the chief execs and the leaders of councils as we speak. So yeah, we will be coming back to committee to talk about flexible plastics at some point.
Charlie, you're next. Raucous behaviour. Charlie. Yep.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Firstly, I'd like to congratulate everyone involved on the significant improvements to the waste collection service. I believe publishing this report will help rebuild public confidence by showing residents just how much the service has improved. I just have a couple of questions. I still have residents on the High Street in my ward who don't currently receive a recycling collection. Are there any plans to extend the service to these properties in the future? And also, out of curiosity, how often are the litter bins along the High Street emptied? Thank you.
Alistair?
Hello. Yeah. So if you've got residents who don't have a recycling service, yeah, if you forward us on those specific addresses, because they should be. So if they haven't got something's clearly gone wrong, but we can provide one very easily. We just need to find out who those residents are. The litter bins on the High Street. The contract is not on a frequency-based contract. The contractor is not allowed to let them get past 75% full. So if it means they've got to go there 5 times a day, they go there 5 times a day. If it means they go there once a week because it's barely used, they go there once a week. So it's not a frequency-based contract. And that's why those QR codes will hopefully help as well. But as I said on my introduction to the report, sewers are building the right kind of frequencies to ensure that those bins don't get overly full. And that's what they're tweaking at the moment. And they're looking at the frequency at which bins are filling so they can increase visits or reduce them, or maybe add another bin in or so forth, whatever's required to provide the most effective service.
Does that answer your question? Would you like to come back?
Yeah, no, just say thank you for the clarity. Thank you.
Lovely. Right. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Chair. Really nice to hear the words about Simpler Recycling Phase 2. God love it. So first of all, really good news in terms of the improvement. I'm sure that is very much welcome. Now, I know other parts of the partnership still have properties that are on the exemption list from simpler recycling, either for food waste or for recycling due to lack of capacity for the additional bins, etc. Do we have any properties in the borough that are on an exemption list in that regard at the moment? Secondly, are sewers reporting back the issues with whether they be enclosed or external bin stores that can then be shared with partners? So I know, for example, Tettenhall Way is a nightmare. Now I have to report it for work purposes, so I'll declare a semi-interest there, but because it's my firm that has to go and clear it because it's our land. But it would be really helpful if when they turn up and they go, we can't get to the bins, means it's not waiting for me to go to Aldi on Sunday. That'd be helpful. And in terms of the social value, it's good to see, but it does say there, they're looking for innovative ways to improve their social value spend. How do we feed into that? Is there a way for us to suggest projects? I know, for example, sewers elsewhere in the country have produced STEM toolkits for schools, which is a relatively low cost one for them to deliver. And frankly, anything that encourages students in Swale into STEM subjects would be very much welcome, I'm sure. And naturally, I don't think that takes too much out of their budget for social value, but its potential impact could be quite high. Among other things, I mean, the classic at the moment would be the new design water butt planters that you can get, where they slow drainage into the mains drains, therefore reducing surface water flooding and discharge, and brightening up the area by having a nice bit of floral display. So yeah, just as examples.
I think I would absolutely support that, especially in terms of, for example, supporting green jobs in Swale. Waste is a really interesting area for potential growth, and the majority of political parties support green economy and therefore green jobs. I would just like to say, actually, that part of the information that is missing out of this report is actually around how many women are choosing waste management for their careers. It's an excellent career. I know some people, and they're in it for a long time. They've got some, but every single bin crew that I'm out is usually male orientated. There are some excellent female operatives that we've got working in sewers and for Swale, absolutely. But it'd be really interesting to find out a little bit more around their social value, apprenticeships, work experience, things like that, how they're actually attracting the best of the talent that's out there into waste management, because I believe it's a growth area, to be honest with you. Sorry, Alistair, do you want to come back?
Yeah, I'll come back on a few of those. The first one you asked about the exemption list. Everyone in the borough has food collections. The only areas we still need to reach out to are the holiday camps, which is something we've got planned in for after the summer season. But we've got somebody working on that at the moment. There's a few communal properties where we're trying to move them on to alternate weekly collections rather than weekly residual collections and a fortnightly recycling service. So there's a bit of tidying up to do. We know where those areas are, and we've got it planned in to get those bits done. The social value element, as part of their offer, Suez put forward a social value champion, and she's been working on the Mid-Kent contract, delivering some great successes. She was key to that upcycle your skills campaign. I can absolutely take that away, Councillor Martin, and ask them about the STEM tool offer, see what they've got to provide for that. Yeah, and the bit about the bin store, sorry, I didn't quite get it.
Yes, apologies.
So I don't talk without the chair. So it's purely so we have bin stores, both whether they're enclosed or the old open fence ones in areas. The main one that I get problems with is Tettenhall Way, right opposite Aldi, where regardless of what day I go there, I guarantee you there will be litter all over the place. Whether or not the sewers chaps who are out doing the waste operatives are reporting that back so that we can report to the partners who are responsible. I mean, that particular one I have to deal with for my job anyway. So if I go to Aldi and I spot it, I have to report it because it's the firm I work for owns that land. But it would be really helpful as well if we knew on Tuesday bin day rather than Sunday when I happen to have gone shopping.
Yeah, and that's something. I mean, the communal collections, we've had a few irregularities with operatives on the communal collections, but that's something we're absolutely focusing on and trying to get that right. So we'll take that away.
Lovely. Martin, do you want to come back on anything? No? Okay. Right then. So, Hayden, did you want to speak on this again?
Sorry, Chair. Councillor Jay's mentioned it.
Oh, apologies. I should have been better at interpreting the sign language. Do apologise. Next time I'll be better at it. All right, then let's move on to Councillor Bonnie online, please.
Hi. Oh, thank you very much, Dolly, for letting me speak. Yeah, so a couple of things. So, yes, at our committee last night, no spoiler, but it will come to you as a recommendation around our town centres and what our contractor could do to assist with trying to clean and make the town centres more presentable. I mean, I have to say with Councillor James's comments and other committee members, I totally agree, especially the railings around the one-way system that are regularly, and I have to say, some of our community and voluntary organisations, some of the worst offenders for putting up fly posting. And so if you're a representative of any of those, please ask them what they're doing in terms of advertising. But yeah, if we could get our contractors to get on top of this, because it really drags down the look of the town centre, especially when it's right behind our the cinema and the restaurants there. It brings the whole area down. So it's a plea, and then I'm sure when you come to it, you'll have a look at this. But what could our contractor do? Maybe you can put some thought into it before it arises. What our contractor could do in terms of social value in trying to help assist groups in the town centre take some custodianship, and particularly in Sittingbourne because we don't have a town council. Sort of followed closely behind by Sheerness and World Fashions ahead of the curve. They're on it, and so is their town council. The second point is around road closures. Now, unfortunately, we've already spoken about the water companies, but they are the major culprit behind many of the road closures in my area. In fact, two of my roads, Green Lane and Church Street in Bromsham, have been closed no less than about 8 times in the last 6 months on separate occasions, causing absolute chaos. Now, whilst you can't do anything about that, we are occasionally forewarned, sometimes on the day, but we do get the notifications. And when it's happened recently, the feedback I got from the officers is residents still need to report this in. But when it's a whole road that's been missed, I would have thought systems, these clever systems that we asked to be installed that monitor what's being collected, would identify that whole area has been missed. So I think we need to get to the bottom of this as a committee, whether it is or it isn't, because if it isn't being flagged in the systems, then we need to go through a whole borough-wide education process to tell our residents that even if the whole road's been missed and you can see it and everyone's bin's out, you still need to report it in. Unfortunately, everyone seems to tell me, as I say to them, you've got to report it. But I would think there is some responsibility on the contractor when they're planning their routes, that they check what is open and what is closed. Another one that's been closed regularly, that's on the edge of my ward and falls into Councillor Stevens' ward, is Woodstock Road, and it just causes carnage with the collections certainly in the rural areas. So that's the second point, and the third also is about rural street cleansing, and I really would like to pick up on the fact that we feel neglected still, and one of the benefits of the new contract was that the rural areas were to get a look in. Stockers Hill has been reported several times now, and it's so overgrown now, and there's so much debris that the only thing pedestrians can do is walk on the road up Stockers Hill. Now that is a really popular walking route to and from town, but also for people walking the area. And my plea is that we somehow focus on getting some of the street cleansing that's been requested brought forward.
To come back on that, Alistair?
Yes, as we mentioned earlier about the fly posting, I can absolutely flag that with Suez. They'll remove it from any public property. They can't remove it from private property or telecom boxes, but they absolutely should be removing it from the public property. Road closures, it's a really tricky one. Road closures. If a road's closed, you might try and nip down it in a car and see if you can chance your luck. But in an RCV, you just can't do that. If you get down there and it's closed, there's no way you're going to turn around. So they do try and be proactive. They are made aware of road closures. They will try and return to roads where there's been closures. Where we're aware, we try and flag it as well with them, make sure they've got some kind of plan. But it's a troublesome one for many of us. But they do return if we're aware of something that's not been done and they're passing by again. They have been fairly good at going back and collecting those bins. And the last point, the rural street cleansing. I don't disagree with you on some of those areas. We're trying to get out and resolve some of them. There's some dialogue with the contractor happening at the moment with regards to how we can do that more effectively. But Stockers Hill, I've made a note of that one, Councillor Bonney, and I'll get officers to look into that one.
Martin, would you like to come back?
Yeah, just to pick up on one of Councillor Bonney's questions, should people report it? The contractor does have a mechanism of locking a road out when it's closed, so that should flag on their system. But we absolutely still recommend that residents report it. That means that it's logged in a slightly different way. We're made aware of it, and the clock starts ticking for them to return. So we absolutely would recommend, and that where you've been given that advice, it's much better for individual residents to report it rather than for councillors to come and say numbers 1 to 25, because in theory it should still be put through as 1 to 25 accounts of non-collection. So we absolutely do recommend it. If they've closed the road properly on the system, then it shouldn't allow the resident. It should say we're aware and we'll come back. So it's a bit of, we need the contractor to do a bit more. We need to be checking on it, and we really do want residents to report online. And I mentioned earlier, we're just about to embark on a project with the transformation team to start having a look at those forms again. We got them ready for the start of the contract. It's absolutely now the right time for us to go through and review them, try and tweak them, try and make them more intuitive. So we're constantly trying to make them better and easier for residents to use. So we will be doing that as well.
Can I come back on that, Dolly, please?
If you're really, really quick, Monique, yes.
Yeah. So the collections that were affected on Thursday. So a lot of people think, well, they'll come back on Friday, and if they haven't, by that time the call centre's shut. So especially my older residents, if they're not online, when they then go to report, they're told it's too late by Monday.
Alistair?
Yeah, if your collection's due Thursday, you get 2 working days. So by Monday, you should still be able to report a missed bin.
Right. Okay. I'll tell them that. Yeah. Fine. Okay.
Okay, so just letting members know, I've got Ashley Shell, Leanne, Tony and Shelley, and that would be the last ones I'll be taking on this item, then we can move on to the next agenda item. So Ashley Shell, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just quickly, the QR codes work absolutely brilliantly in my ward anyway. And when I log a bin, which is really simple, I've not waited any longer than an hour for the crew to come and empty that bin. The only bit I have a slight problem with is the bin map online, because one of my bins doesn't have a QR code yet. Just because it's a very old style one, but the bins are not right on the map, and some are missing. There's added bins, so just a little bit of work around that. But other than that, they are absolutely perfect. Once that's logged, come in and getting it any day of the week.
Alistair?
Yeah, thank you for that feedback. It's good to know that's working well. The bin map, I think I said earlier in the meeting, we're still going through that process of fine tuning that, and then once we've got all that information accurately, then Suez will do another upload, and then that should hopefully put most of that right on the assets.
Excellent. Right, Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to make sure we're doing all we can for residents that, like say in cul-de-sacs, where I know there's a few in my ward where residents are made to move their bins all the way down to the end of the road, because the bin vehicles won't actually drive in the road, whether they can't turn round or anything. But this is elderly, disabled residents that are having to get neighbours or people to move their bins to where they can get picked up, otherwise they don't get picked up. And the same with bulky waste. I've had residents say to me that they're having to carry their bulky waste all the way down to the end of the road, otherwise it doesn't get picked up. So I just wanted to point that out. And also with the QR codes, because I know it might not be as bad here with bins and things, but is there some sort of, I know that Swell, but like hologram or something, to people are aware that they're an official QR code, because obviously people are going around sticking QR codes on things that aren't actually, being and scamming residents, which we don't obviously want, and people may avoid scanning QR codes due to that.
So luckily, even though the QR codes are coming in, there's nothing stopping residents from either reporting, like via customer services as well. We don't want to lose the access for people just because we're applying for QR codes, if that makes sense. So that's really important. We don't supplement one system and then expect everybody to join in that one system, because lots of people are not going to use QR codes. I potentially am rubbish with QR codes, so I will not be using them, but I'm assuming there'll be others like myself who are tech useless. Alistair.
Thank you, Chair. We do offer a service to anyone who's unable to put their bins out. We can assist them, so they can go through our call centre, provide any evidence required, and then the contractor will mark them up on the system and collect their bin. So they can walk up the path and collect it if they're unable to do it, if there's no one else in the household who can take it out. So we do offer that service to residents.
Councillor Moore.
Can we make sure that is a bit more widely available then for residents to find? Because like I said, I was unaware of that myself, and a lot of my residents don't know about it. So if we could possibly make it more advertised that service is offered.
What I will do personally is I will go to some organisations that support different areas of residents. For instance, Southern Housing might need reminding. Age UK might be able to support that with regards to their contact lists as well. So maybe we can do a little bit of signposting on that particular point. Martin.
Yeah, so it's called assisted collections. They can apply online or via the website for that. I think, however, that doesn't exactly answer your question, because I would imagine, particularly in your ward, Leanne, there are a number of private roads, and there is a contractual issue with collecting from those private roads. So the cul-de-sacs you're mentioning, the residents have been told to present it to the edge of their boundary, which technically is the end of the private road. So that's where the team can, if there are issues with elderly, etc., that's where the team can intervene, go out, do site visits with you or the other ward councillors, and have a look at those. So it's not a hard and fast. Normally, if it's an adopted road, they will normally at least reverse down the road to get in so that they can get out. But there is an anomaly with that with private roads. So it may be that that's the case in your scenario.
Okay. Councillor Winkles, please.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to ask a question at this committee, which I don't sit on. Right, there's in Milton Regis, we got damaged litter bins, one in Ackley Way, which I've also reported, and one of my residents has reported it. Basically, when is this bin going to be replaced? And the other question is, why are these doors being damaged? Has anybody got an answer to that?
I don't particularly have an answer for you, Councillor Winkles, so I'll let the officers come in on that in a moment. But I would recommend that, as we are talking about some very locational specific issues with members this evening, I would personally be following all of this sort of stuff up with an email to officers as well, just to make sure that, because there's a lot of locations being mentioned this evening, so it may well be worth following up with an email. Sorry, Alistair, apologies.
Yeah, I was going to say something very similar, and ideally, where we can, use the online reporting tools, because that allows us to record the issue with the bin and get it resolved quickly, whereas emails can slip through the net. Yeah, we can look into those if they're reported. Feel free to send me a message, Councillor Winkles.
Okay, thank you. I will, thank you.
Martin?
And just to add to that, Councillor Winkles, I know you've reported it because I've seen it come through to me as well. But to put that into context, this litter bin project, over 1,500 litter bins across the borough. They are all in differing states. Some are the really old concreted in ones. We have a process of replenishment of bins. I myself signed off an order for over £20,000 last week on an order of new litter bins. So we do have a number coming. Unfortunately, we're not blessed with space or a depot as a council, so I don't have anywhere to store 400 bins currently. So we are bringing them in batches, and the team are replacing them. So whilst I can't promise that we will change all 1,500 in the next few weeks, we are definitely running through a replacement programme, and as I say, 400 on their way in batches to us as we speak.
That absolutely draws up volumes of images for me of walking into Swale House with multiple bins, potentially doing our own bin face of having a bin behind reception, possibly helping out, and maybe there'll be a couple in the toilets waiting for us. So the quicker we can find locations for those, the better. But hopefully ours will be considerably much smarter than bin face himself. We will see. Councillor Cheeseman.
Thank you, Chair. it's been an issue in my ward and probably other people's wards where people are using fast gas canisters. I know there was quite a few in a car park once, and my resident reported it to the police and the council, and they were he noticed they've been put up against, I think, the signpost in the car park. But these are quite dangerous things, so it's not, how do they get removed? Just curious.
Martin? You two can pick.
Yeah, they
It's
are.
fine.
You're correct. They're dangerous. Obviously, you've seen in the press recently lots of fires. Unfortunately, from both vapes, electrical items, and these gas canisters. It is a really treacherous job in collecting them, so they need to be collected and handled differently, and obviously stored at the Kent waste disposal sites, and then they're dealt with appropriately by the KCC disposal mechanisms. So when you see something it's been reported, it's the same with asbestos, where it needs a particular specialist collection. Sometimes that means it can stay out slightly longer than a normal fly tip would, but yeah, so they need to be carefully handled and then disposed of appropriately.
Lovely, thank you.
And I'm going to save my question for last. When we've brought this issue up previously, we have discussed locational support. So again, I'm sure like other people, fly tipping is a bit of an issue. I have hugely committed and persistent residents who absolutely dutifully let me know when fly tipping is happening in Sheerness all the time. Good. I hope they continue to speak to me. However, we have discussed this at length before of having possibly a briefing where we're honing down and looking and working with sewers and our officers and looking at how we fix these location specific issues so that actually we can cut down the costs of having fly tipping crews attending once a week to some areas. And I don't feel that fly tipping is particularly fair for those residents that don't fly tip, because it's an awful big expenditure for the taxpayer. We're not seeing the enforcement response, which is very difficult because there has to be active evidence to prove that for prosecution. I agree with that. However, it does mean that the taxpayers are picking up this across the borough. And if we had a look at potentially some locational support and really focused on, and I know it works because you've done brilliantly with locational support for food waste, for example, where officers have gone out and supported and really seen a good support for that. Can we put that back on the table and reinvigorate that conversation of how we're looking at locations that are appearing for multiple reports all the time, please?
Yeah, and we should absolutely be doing that. I know the environment response team look at the hotspot fly tips, so they look at the numbers coming in, they prioritise the areas where they have higher levels of fly tipping, and then they look at solutions around that. So things like cameras is something we're going to be using more of, I'd like to think. Just this week, I've asked that team about some locations around Sheerness where I think it would be beneficial to put some cameras. It's not always easy to deploy those cameras because you need a power supply. Getting a power supply to various lampposts isn't always easy. And also when a camera goes up, people tend to behave themselves. So it just displaces some of those issues. We're trying to tackle it where we can. We also do the operation assists, so we can target anybody who's possibly disposing of fly tipping via a vehicle. We can use that intelligence again to make sure we're in those areas where there's a higher level of fly tipping.
Brilliant. Obviously, I'd also like to see more input from our housing associations as well, because I have regular reports from multiple areas that potentially they could be doing more to support the work of not encouraging residents to move outside of their own properties and then end up dumping on swale land or public land, which would be really useful to re-engage that conversation. If possible, that would be fantastic. I'll leave that with you. Don't worry about responding, that's fine. Okay, so that's that item done. Let's move on to our last item for the evening, which is the...
Just need to note.
Oh, apologies. Members, do we note the waste report? Everybody note that? Yes, we'll take that as noted. Apologies, sorry about that. Right, let's move on to our last item for the evening, which is Public Conveniences Review and Community Toilet Scheme Update. But before... we'll ask the officer to introduce the report, and then I'm going to use my discretion to have some input before we open up the floor. So if you'd like to introduce the report, please.
Yeah, thank you again, Chair. So this paper updates the Committee on the Public Conveniences position. As a recap, members via the full council at budget setting requested a £100,000 saving from the public conveniences budget. The new 5-year contract went some way to achieving the necessary budget savings by saving £50,000. The remaining £50,000 has been identified from a contingency fund. With this contingency funding, no further savings are required. However, members previously supported an amendment for delivering a community toilet scheme. The report highlights some pros and cons of the scheme. If members would still like to progress the community toilet scheme initiative, then funding will be required to do so. The report identifies possible funding routes that have been discussed previously. However, the alternative option 1 does also suggest that not delivering a community toilet scheme is entirely valid if funding streams cannot be identified. If there's a desire to progress with the community toilet scheme, then the report also presents criteria for the scheme that would need approval from this committee. The criteria includes elements such as location, operating hours, facilities and recompense. However, budgets, as I've already said several times, would need to be identified to fund this. Regarding the possible asset transfers identified, apart from Ore Gunpowder Works, there's been little interest from any other organisations to take these facilities on.
Lovely, thank you. So the first, I'll just let them leave the area. Excellent. Wasp in a tin coke can, excellent. Right, so members, can I draw your attention to the financial element of the report, which is right at the bottom for financial implications, and I would like an officer to talk through those financial implications, please.
Okay, so the new contract has a costing of £299,300. So with the £50,000 contingency contribution, we've got pretty much exactly that sum. With regards to the community toilet schemes, we've tried to indicate there with regards to what they may cost. With regards to recompense, so we make a contribution to each of those facilities if they were to be accepted, and there'd also be a small cost with regards to officers inspecting those facilities as well. The community toilet scheme could run as an alternative to public conveniences. It might be something that this group decide not to follow up at all. As I've said already, the funding, the £100,000 saving that's been required has been found with regards, if you include the £50,000 contribution as the contingency. So whether this group would like to push forward with community toilet schemes, there's some examples there of what it would cost. and those funding streams would need to be identified.
Lovely. How many businesses have come forward in reality for the community toilet scheme?
My colleague Andre Bowen did some work around this, and I think there were 50 or so businesses who were engaged with, and I think it was around 6 or so businesses came forward to say they would be interested.
Sorry, 6?
6.
Right.
I mean, I think those were roughly the figures. I'd have to double check them with Andre.
It is there, but what it actually says is that based on an estimated 6 businesses joining the CTS, receiving up to £1,300 per annum, there would be an additional cost of £7,800 for reimbursement. So by my reckoning, 6 times, sorry about this, basic maths always fails me, 6,800. Yep. So 6 slots of 7,800 works out £46,800 that if 6 businesses took on the community toilet scheme, we'd have to find that money to reimburse those businesses, would we?
If 6 businesses took, I mean, the contributions that are being recommended are, in 2.36, they're the kind of figures we're talking about. So if 6 took them on, it would be 7,000, whatever it is.
So yeah, it says that there would be additional reimbursements. Is that 7,800 per business?
No, it's table
Right.
2.36.
Let's have a look at table 2.36
gives
so we
the
actually understand.
figures. So
there is actually a cost involved in pushing forward with the community toilet scheme. That's what I'm after. It's not and we'd be looking for funding sources for that.
I mean, a single facility, if you look at that table, if it was open more than 74 hours a week, and it had both wheelchair access and a baby changing facility, they'd get the maximum recommended amount of 1,300 a year.
Per business?
Per business.
Right, okay. So I will absolutely lay it out for members. My intention is to propose changing these recommendations on this report. My proposal is that members discuss the next step for facilities not being transferred to other organisations, and that actually the proposal is for us to recommend no more further closures for public conveniences within SWAL in this financial year. My recommendation is also to look at recommendation 2, and because of the lack of numbers that have come forward from businesses, that we do not throw the community toilet scheme out, but we suspend it, and we may come back to it at a later date if we see further interest from businesses coming forward, based on the fact that if we accept the community toilet scheme, there will be an outlay attached to it. And I'm more than happy to accept discussion around that, but I'm absolutely being honest with you, that is my intention, is to propose that recommendation before the end of the meeting. Lovely. Right, Leanne, you actually, no, I've got some visiting members. Apologies, they need to go first. So I had Councillor No, you were down on a list for a visiting member for this item?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm here as ward member for Sheppey East, and I want to make clear that the process agreed by this committee has not been followed. In September last year, officers met with Lansdowne Parish Council to discuss the public toilets. At that meeting, the Parish Council made clear that it was open to discussing taking them on, but needed to look at the costings. It was also made clear that the matter would need to go before the full Parish Council for debate and a vote. Now, officers agreed to provide the financial information, including income from other Borough Council assets in Lansdowne that might potentially offset the cost. Now, crucially, the Parish Council was told not to contact the Borough Council, but to wait until after this committee considered the matter in November. So on November 12th, this committee formally resolved to offer 7 public conveniences, including Lansdowne Beach Services and the Spinney Toilet, for transfer to town and parish councils or other appropriate organizations. Now, the committee also resolved to retain those toilets within the contract for 12 months while negotiations continued, but that's not what happened. Laysdown Parish Council was never offered the toilet block. It was never contacted to begin negotiations. The promised financial information was never actually fully provided. And it's not just Laysdown. Queenborough Town Council was offered the toilet block, but never provided with all the information they requested, despite repeatedly asking. Now, they've asked...
Sorry, Councillor No. Councillor, I'm happy to take your representation for your ward, but I do have Queenborough Town councillors that are also down as visiting members. So not to interrupt you, but if we can stick to your ward, if that's okay.
Okay, well, with respect to Laysdown, considering that we were never actually offered the toilets, I'm asking that this be considered tonight before any irreversible decisions are made. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor No. Councillor, would you like to come back on that, Martin?
It's not for me to come back because I would have to go back and engage with the officers that undertook that. The officers that we've spoken to regarding the asset transfers have confirmed that those conversations were happening. So I've got other members that are intimating the same as you, Councillor No. So I would absolutely need to take that away. Can't answer that tonight. But from my point of view, any organisation that is interested in looking at those facilities, we absolutely should be providing you with all of the detail that you need. And if we haven't, I apologise, and we will do.
Would you like to come back on that, Councillor No?
No, thank you. Thank you for your response.
Councillor Whiting, you're down as the second visiting member for the evening. Councillor Whiting? Okay, we'll move on.
Thank you, Chair. I hadn't actually asked to speak. I just asked for a link to the meeting, so I was listening.
Oh, I've got you down as a visiting member wanting to speak on the item. But if you don't want to speak, that's okay. I'm sure members will take that 3 minutes and go home earlier. That's
I've said I think what I needed to say. I won't let it to the members of the committee. I hope they've had a chance to read it. I do think that while the policy may have merits, I think it should be for the moment put to bed on the grounds that it can't be afforded as per one of the options that were rejected. It's a perfectly valid thing to take no action tonight and just to defer this, at least defer it until we know in a couple of weeks what's happening to Scarborough Council, and at least defer it until such times as we've got the money to pay for it. I don't think selling or closing toilets is the right way to pay for this policy. And that's my main point. I don't think I need to add anything more to that. So I'll just simply urge members to take no action on this tonight at all, until such times as the money is available or it's being identified from another source. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Whiting. Just to obviously let you know that I did draw the members' attention to the financial implications for a particular reason, which is because this committee has done an excellent job at finding £50,000 of savings with regards to the toilet restructuring, public convenience restructuring. Sorry, I'm terrible, obviously. However, I do believe that the rest of the funding can be found in other areas, and I do believe that the next financial year is the earliest that we should be revisiting anything to do with public toilets. With regards to the community toilet scheme, that scheme absolutely has merit, absolutely does. However, it doesn't have merit with 6 businesses. I believe there has to be a floor level, and it has to be something that, there's been a lot of work gone into it, and I believe that suspending that is the right move, so we can bring it back at a later date if it proves that it needs to be something looked at by this committee again. Right, next on my list is Leanne.
Thank you, Chair. I think, you said no more closures. I think that is completely right. I mean, you look at the figures on the papers, the proposed saving for, speaking about my ward in Laysdown, is 8.7k, which if you could find 6 businesses in Laysdown that would be open and people to be able to use, that's a saving of £900. Then you've got the officer hours, which are £733 per annum per facility. It will take you over the amount it's going to cost you to close the toilets. So I think the community toilet scheme would possibly work. I think it needs to be investigated and in place before any toilets are closed, to see how it works. And I think rural areas, you're going to struggle to find the businesses appropriate to support any community toilet facilities, because a lot of places aren't open first things in the morning or late at night. So I really think, we can't be closing any more facilities whatsoever until there is some proper investigation and proper engagement with town and parish councils.
So would you agree with me that actually part of the evening's recommendations could be around making sure that the dialogue for towns and parishes stays open and we explore every opportunity? I've discussed many times different options, including drawdown schemes, including looking at potential partners around communities, and I think those options should be revisited. I potentially think that actually some towns and parishes would be the right places for these toilets to remain a priority, especially when we're moving from one model of council to another. But I can say from personal experience, being the chair of Sheerness Town Council, having a bill land on my desk saying, if you want this toilet scheme, you're going to have to pay £40,000. Offering up 40% of my town council's precept for that particular item was never going to be achievable in that form. But I'm more than happy to seek out different ways that SWAL can interact with councils. Would you like to come back on Leanne's points, Alistair?
No, no.
Just, I had a proposal before the one you did, which was no more closures until all town or parish councils have been asked to take ownership and had a proper discussion and or a proven success of the community toilet scheme. So the toilets stay open until we know that the toilet scheme is successful.
I agree with the sentiment. I believe they need to be in separate recommendations, because what we want is to have that line drawn completely and make it incredibly clear that this committee believes that we do not need to revisit this within the same financial year. I can't control what the budget working group are going to ask for, or potentially other pressures that are coming down on this. But I believe, without a shadow of a doubt, that this committee has done its job with regards to public conveniences. We've done what we've been asked to do, and now it's time that this piece of work is about a finishing off piece for the toilet conversation in my mind, and I think it's really important that we finish strong and we're very clear about what we're expecting as next steps. And I wouldn't like to see this conversation come back again before the end of the financial year, personally. Right, Monique. Monique? No, we'll try again in a minute. Councillor Shell.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, last night at Economy and Property, we spoke about our town centres, and the public convenience in Queenborough is very much a strong part of our town centre. We've got such an amazing boating community that use the shower block and the toilets. And also on a personal note for the church, we still don't have a toilet in our church, and the public convenience is absolutely essential to our congregation and for me on a Sunday morning. And I just wanted to thank you for your proposal and for the committee for its extremely hard work in finding the savings that's needed to be able to keep these conveniences open. We know that the budget is as tight as anything, and trying to squeeze anything out money-wise is difficult without us trying to squeeze out the loo as well. So just a heartfelt thank you to your committee and officers for all the hard work in pulling in that money to be able to keep these conveniences open, hopefully, if that's what the committee recommends. The toilet community scheme is a good idea, but as everybody's mentioned, with just 6 businesses, it's not very viable, is it? So thank you all very much for your hard work.
Councillor Bonney, just one more opportunity to come in. No, okay, we'll just move on. Councillor Jones.
Sorry, no, thank you.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. I didn't need to. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Chair. As has been said, the asset transfer discussions haven't gone far enough or reached a conclusion. I've had members of Queenborough Town Council speak to me about this. It's almost a shame that it wasn't wrapped into the transfers agreed to Queenborough last night. It could have been a nice bundle and one lot of work passed to legal rather than them probably bill us for 2. I think if need be, we could have a joint working group with property to progress this. I think a bit of member involvement might help, or a bit more member involvement. While I was against the recent toilet closures, I asked, following recent closures, do we need a community toilet scheme at this stage? I think everyone that was closed is served by other toilets locally, hence why they were the ones that were selected. And obviously, if we're concerned about money, we've had 2 public toilets that have been closed for 20 years that we're probably paying business rates on, water bills and electric bills on. So if we want to save money, perhaps we should look at the Rushington Road toilet. And I know last night East Church Road has been deferred for a further 18 months, but it'd be good to know what we've spent on the last 20 years, because that would have been probably a very good saving, and we'd have achieved the 50k and wouldn't have to have put that back in the budget. I think we need another round of Pride in Place impact funding to spruce some of these toilets up before we transfer them. But the library toilet does look really good. I've had the need to use it, and I was quite impressed actually. And if we can make them all look as nice as that, people might want to spend a penny more. I think rather than this community toilet scheme, I think, as you said, parish and town councils will be more likely to take on toilets if they've got financial support for the first year, whether it's the full cost or a different sum. Perhaps that's what this committee should be looking at rather than the community toilet scheme. I know we've already got 2 proposals on the floor with no seconders, but I did have one myself. Whether we wrap them all together, it was going to be one on its own, and it's this committee are against closing further public toilets, including to fund community toilet scheme, and note the report and request a further update on the progress of transfer of toilet assets in the next financial or civic year.
So I don't think it particularly is a bother. What my intention was at the start of the meeting was to show strong and clear leadership and to try and give members the confidence to come forward and say, these are your opinions. You've got a place here where you can discuss it without fear or favour, which I do believe the role of the chair should be. So I'm just going to go to Martin first, then we're going to finish off our speakers, and then we'll have a look at changes to the recommendations.
Yeah, I was coming back on actually Councillor Shields' comments around the Queenborough toilets. Thanks to Councillor Marchington, we've been doing some research, and we do have potentially a small saving coming on Queenborough toilets, because we have actually been paying for the water and the electricity of the boating community for the last 25 years. They are not separately metered, so we have written to the All Tide Landing Queenborough Harbour Trust to split those supplies so that they can pay their way. So thank you very much, Councillor Marchington, on that. So there will be a small saving. I will come back in terms of the once I understand the proposals and everything, and then hopefully I can comment on those.
Yep, and what we want to do is come out of this with strong proposals so that we can absolutely finish this piece of work strong. And make sure that it's fit for purpose going forward. So, Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Chair. How depressing when you get asked to sub on a committee and the first thing that you see is, oh, let's close. I know it's only as an illustrative item, but let's close central car park toilets in Faversham to save £36.5 thousand. And I cannot reiterate strongly enough yet again, no, no. If you want to maintain a visitor economy anywhere in the borough, you've got to make it so that people can get off a coach and spend a penny without. And I was looking through the community toilet scheme, and I know I was one that suggested it before. And I was looking back over how it works in Maidstone, and it worked fine in year one. If you go now, most of the people that are involved in that scheme, they've got codes on the toilet doors. So you want to go and use it, you've got to go up to the counter. Most of them are restaurants where you can't order at the counter anymore. So you've got to go and order something from a machine to get the code for the door off the receipt. It's not working so well anymore for them. Okay, they've held the buildings to use as depots for their waste cleansing, street cleansing staff, but it's not working. I don't think it needs to be an either or. I think there is a place for the community toilet schemes going forward. This is not where we find the funds. I'm pretty certain there is an earmarked reserve somewhere that may well be suitable for a 1 year, 2 year trial of such a scheme. But I haven't got the list of earmarked reserves in front of me, and nor can I find them to suggest it.
I'm very confident we can find the savings to maintain what I've suggested this evening.
Yeah. There's
Otherwise, I
bound
wouldn't
to be
suggest
saving
it.
somewhere as well. But certainly, I don't think we can look at closing Central Car Park. I don't think we can look at Queenborough. I don't think we can look at Laysdown either. At this point in time, we have closed the ones that we could close without having a significant detrimental impact on the general public and our visitor economy. What we've done is bad enough, and we cannot afford.
But that has been part of major work from officers, and they've done a sterling job, because if you look at the toilets that have been closed, they have all been around. For example, the halfway cemetery toilets were on contract. They weren't even useful or fit for it was money we were throwing away. Again, the same as it's understandable to look at toilets that are not our assets. I understand that, but we've done that work. Now we need to move on to make sure that we're trying to ring fence the stuff that the community and SWAL does need to keep.
Yep, and I quite agree. The officers have done a fantastic and sterling job in getting us to a point where we have something that is sustainable. And hopefully officers have never taken it the wrong way. I mean, I've begged for toilets in some locations before and never got it. Back when we had that £1 million a year to spend, didn't get it for my ward. That's just the case. And actually now we'd have probably closed those anyway. So happy days, we didn't waste capital and then try and save revenue later. But we can't look at this as a savings option going forward, and that needs to be really clear in those budget discussions. It is not the time. In terms of for the parish councils and the town councils and anybody else, they need those financial figures if they're going to look at taking them on by the first week of September, because actually they've got to tell SWAL by the second week of January what they plan on having as their precept next year. So if they haven't got that data in September for that round of meetings, it's another year gone. And I think I was certainly for Faversham, that was part of the problem. The financial information came through in November, December time-ish. They've done a public consultation. The public said outright that SWAL do a fantastic job of maintaining the toilets and managing the toilets, and the contract is great. Don't you dare take them on, because you'll screw it up. And that's a town council which we've heard 3 times over the last couple of nights is doing a good job on everything else. So yeah, the public like what we do with toilets. Let's keep them. Look for savings elsewhere, and I will endorse that proposal to put a hold on community toilets until we can find funding elsewhere.
What I was really keen to do was also provide at a very definite level, making sure we don't revisit this before the next financial year, gives towns and parishes that opportunity, that breathing space to be creative and say, actually, how do we look at our precept? Is this something we want for our community? Is this something that is going to be served by the new look councils? I know it's a bit of a guesswork at the moment, but so is so many other things. So I absolutely believe that lots of communities could be served. And there's many other examples actually in Kent through Calc where there are other creative schemes. For example, I'm not saying we're going to do it here, but New Romney are looking at the potential of taking on a toilet and a car park to pay for that toilet so that residents can directly see what money is being used. Oh, was that fairly something that Faversham was thinking of doing?
If Martin wants to give up the highest grossing car park in the borough, I'm sure the town council would quite happily take on the toilets in exchange for that. But I don't think the budget could afford it.
I'm not sure that's gonna float. But I'm just saying there are other opportunities.
You are the decision makers, so you can tell me what to do.
Lovely, thank you very much. So I'm just going to move on to Councillor Bourne.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to formally second your proposals.
That's very kind. We'll come back to that in a second. Councillor Marchington.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'll be as brief as I can because we've already come across one point on the water. So we're assuming that the water will be separated at its own gauge before any negotiations are made with the toilet block. So thank you for that. I've been around speaking to the local businesses, and the 5 ones that are closest have shown absolutely no interest in supplying any facility to the general public. The shop on the corner, for the Bosons, they haven't got a disabled toilet anyway. The yacht club is a private members club, so general public can't use it because they wouldn't be insured. You know, there's always something. The Old House Home showed no interest at all, and the Flying Dutchman is shown no interest at all either. And then by that time we're now half a mile away. I know it's less than a mile, but so which means a bid by the Queenborough Town Council will be virtually a standalone affair. You know, which I'm not personally. I'm all for that, but we need to know definite costs before we could agree to anything. And the fear I've got at the moment is we're so currently involved with the LGR, the local government reorganisation, and that's coming heavily on the paperwork at the moment. Would we have definite figures to decide on before that, because it's coming close? And I would prefer probably I'd propose to do a deferment after the LGR is completed. So we need a deferment at least 8 months before we bring the actual arrangement between what to actually do with the toilets. So that's all I can say at the moment. Thank you.
So that does support the moving it to the new financial year to give towns and parishes some breathing space. I completely support that. I actually believe that the toilets in Queenborough might be an asset to the town council. Very similar, I believe that the toilets in Sheerness will be an asset to, same as Laysdown actually. It just needs to be, this is something that towns and parishes have never taken on before, and it's not a one-off cost, it's ongoing running costs. So I don't know about you, but staff at Sheerness have no experience at doing things like that. So this breathing space, I think, is essential to allow that sort of conversation to develop and make a considered decision over these sort of things. Right, Pete, I'm going to move on to Peter McDonald, unless you want to come back, Peter?
No, I'm all right there. But I would like to just propose that we need at least an 8-month deferment before decisions.
Peter McDonald.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I'm totally against any further closures, quite frankly. We are, even in the town here, we rely on tourism and visitors to come and spend money, not just in the loos, but, in the town. So I think we should, if we can find other ways of helping with the finances, then I think that's the way forward. And I totally agree with Councillor Jays' proposal at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McDonald. Councillor Marchant, just to let you know, if we go with the financial year, that's 9 months of breathing space. So maybe we opt for those terminologies potentially. Right, so we've heard all the discussion elements. Let's go back to thinking about how just from general nodding your head, can we all particularly agree that we would like to see a full stop on closures for public conveniences in Swale until the new financial year? Yes, are you happy? I just want to make sure, I don't want to write something down that's
I'm not sure you've got much support for the next financial year.
so next financial year would be 9 months, and that would give the opportunity to pass over the 6 month challenge that we've had from some agenda items that come back. So if we don't put a time frame on it, it could be challenged and brought back for another decision based upon it in 6 months. I don't want to see it that early. I think the new financial year would also mean that the people looking at overall council finances would have a very clear line in terms of the timescale that we're wanting. Fact is, these are non-statutory services. Officers have done the right thing, bringing non-statutory services back here to say we need to look at them, we need to consider savings. Like all non-statutory services should be regularly reviewed to make sure that we're getting the best out of them for our council taxpayers and for best value for money. That has happened. I'm more than happy to put my head above the parapet and say officers and councillors on the Environment Committee have done their due diligence on this item. Andre has done an amazing job with the report for the community toilet scheme. It's not his fault that no businesses have come forward to support that. We have to deal with the reality of the situation. So, with recommendations, we're changing the recommendation an awful lot. Is that a super problem, do you think? Sorry, Tim.
No, that's okay. As long as you can reread the wording so I can note it down.
Are you on mic? I'll explain. Just so that it's on mic. So the advice from Dem Services. You don't have to listen to any of the recommendations, and picking up on Councillor Martin's thing, officers never take umbrage with people not following recommendations. You pay us to bring the information to you to enable these decisions. You will be unsurprised that the illustrative figures of those add up to the original saving target that was set at 100,000. So there's no coincidence in that. It's completely fine. All you need to do for Dem Services, because he has to write really fast, is say what your new recommendations are really slowly. Thank you.
Okay. So I think we've agreed the first part of the sentence. Members agree not to close any more public toilets in Swale. Do we have any support? Can you put your hands up if you support the financial year element of this proposal? I'm more than happy to consider other. Yep.
I don't think we should link a future report to discussing further closures. I think we should link the report to discussing the transfer of toilet assets. So I think we should get a new report in the new financial year on the progress of that.
I completely agree. I'd like to take that as a separate recommendation so that basically we're separating out the two so we can fulfil the criteria of one recommendation. We can also be doing work towards the separate second recommendation, which is to provide a separate report on communications, engagement with towns and parishes to discuss potential asset transfer. Would you accept that, Councillor Jones?
As long as Democratic Services understand it, I'm sure it's fine.
We can make some words that make the intent.
Lovely. Martin?
Yeah, I mean, again, not trying to influence this. At the moment, recommendation reads that members discuss the next steps, which you've done, and advise if they support. So I think the resolution should be, and we do not support further closures to create additional savings. So that's only a minor amend on recommendation 1. To pick up Councillor Jay's comment around, I think it's a new recommendation, you're right, of bring a report back on future asset transfer discussions. however you want it worded, Elliot. And then almost entirely, if you're not looking, I mean, you haven't discussed it tonight, any of the criteria. You could authorise the criteria, but I would suggest that given you haven't discussed it, you don't have 2 and 3. And if it ever needs to come back, we'll bring it back in whatever form people want it
I
to be.
agree. However, I think we're much more stable putting a time frame on that first recommendation, because I don't want to see it coming back in 6 months. I don't want it challenged in 6 months. If there's a time frame that's attached to it, surely that means that we're pushing this further beyond our boundary. And if they can do it in motions where they dictate what meeting something's going to come back to, surely a recommendation via the committee to say we need to push this as far as we're along. I think when I thought about the financial year, that's when everything else kicks in. Sorry, Councillor Martin.
Councillor Braun ahead of me.
Well, luckily I'm chair, so I'm going to say you can go first and Councillor Braun come next.
Okay. I think we're worrying a bit too much there, because I think realistically, I don't know what member would want to commit political suicide by proposing a motion that says, I propose that you revisit closing this toilet and I demand that you close this toilet. Nobody is going to say that. There is not a member amongst us that is that daft to want to say, close my toilet.
Right, you all heard that. So I'm happy to accept no time frame on it because a visiting substitute member has decided we can all find you on full council night then. So so let's move that on then. So go with Martin's discussion. I think it was a salient way to go forward, and then. Recommendation to change that to, we would like a paper to come forward around engagement with towns and parishes to consider conversations around toilet assets, public convenience assets within ward boundaries. It may well mean that those parish and towns that have rejected potentially taking on assets before, if we have a rethink and shake the ideas tree, or do the art of the possible, as this council likes to remind me all the time, there may be something that might attract more towns and parishes to potentially take on those assets. So I believe we should be starting with a clean slate. We should go back out, not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. There's already conversations that have already happened with parishes, as we've already been stated by Councillor No, but to allow other towns and parishes to have influence if they feel they want to. Councillor Moore.
Can we make sure that, sort of like Councillor Martin said, that if we are engaging in this within the next financial year, that the parish and town councils get it before they do all their precept setting, so they can work out all the figures prior to having to?
I think that's a high ideal, but what we're doing here is we're setting our officers a brand new piece of work, and we've already been told this evening that we've lost in the budget briefing. We've lost an awful lot of officer hours. So I'm more than happy to commit on behalf of officers that they will try their absolute best. And you guys might want to come in on this, but I feel I can happily speak for everybody and say they will try their absolute best, because I can absolutely say that no member of SWAL wanted to follow this as terrible as it seems. So I'm sure there will be some support around it. Martin, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, and just to be really clear, asset transfer conversations are not ended at any point. We can take on those discussions, pick up where they didn't or did end last time. So from that point of view, this isn't a fait accompli tonight. We're absolutely happy to keep those communications open.
I will also commit as chair to going back to officers and looking at where this is going to appear on the forward plan as well, which also supports Councillor Moore's point that we'll put a definite decision on where that's coming back. Councillor Braun, last but not least.
Well, I just wanted to say I'm sure nobody would pull this up, but for procedural reasons, I wanted to withdraw my seconding to your recommendations at the start of the item, because if
They
we're
have
changing
changed.
them, I do not want those tabled.
Lovely. So going forward, Councillor Jays, I'm happy to propose. Are you happy to second?
I was going to outline my proposal, which I think fits in with what we've been.
So a change of wording.
Yeah, we can
Lovely.
discuss it, but my proposal would be, and I will send this over to Democratic Service on Teams. Members of this committee discuss the next steps for these facilities not being transferred to other organisations and advise that they do not support further closures to create additional savings to deliver the medium-term financial plan and fund the cost of a community toilet scheme. And the second recommendation, this committee requests a further update on the progress of transferring of public convenience assets in the next financial year.
So pretty much what we've already talked about, just with slightly
Exactly,
different
just
wording.
wrapped up into
Excellent.
one nice package.
Yep, Martin.
As you said that, Councillor Jays, I had a slight panic in that asset transfers may well be the territory of the Economy and Property Committee as opposed to this committee.
Yes.
But I think you could, so if you tweaked it slightly of, could we have an update? Because clearly this committee doesn't make the decisions on the transfers. Update is fine, but it may well need to be, the actual fundamental parts of it may well need to be decided by Economy and Property as well. But yeah, I
So-
think I'm comfortable.
Can we not recommend to the Property and Economy team from this council? Because we've had recommendations from Economy come here. So I think we could be slightly stronger in that, and we'd like to take a recommendation to Economy to absolutely have a refresh, I think, on this relationship between asset transfers around public toilets, because they seem to have been taken as two separate things. We've discussed asset transfers like Shinnes Bandstand, and it seems to be a completely separate conversation to the public toilets. What we want is exactly those asset transfers to be on an equal footing, to be seen as equal information sharing. We should be as knowledgeable about allotments as they are about public conveniences. And if Economy is the place to do that, and I feel that we need to also send a recommendation to Economy officially to make sure that's done, rather than it being something that could be done, might not be done. We want it to be officially part of the work towards this recommendation. Members, are you all happy with that as a recommendation to send to Economy Committee? So we're just backing ourselves up. Lovely. Thank you very much. I'll take that as a unanimous support. Right, Tim, have you got enough?
Yes.
Excellent. So to confirm, the recommendations will be to have a full stop, no more asset transfers of, no more closures of public conveniences. Oh, shush. I'm knackered. So there'll be no more transfers, no more closures of public conveniences in Swale. And then the second recommendation will be, do we not want a paper? So does update mean the same as a report being generated? So I would prefer the term report generated if possible, because then we're being really precise on what we're expecting back from officers, rather than a verbal update or something that appears in the chair's briefing or whatever, to relook at, refresh the relationship with regards to asset transfers around public conveniences. Lovely. Right, members, sorry to have kept you. Let's get this in before we have to extend standing orders. Can I get a show of hands, all in favour of the recommendations as just discussed? That's and me. Yes, excellent. So unanimous. Lovely. That is passed. Congratulations. Well done. Good day's work.
Sorry, was that the amendment? We don't vote about the substantive.
No, we don't, because we've changed the original recommendations. Lovely. So on that basis, meeting closed. Well done, everybody.